And welcome to another rugby league video. So today what we're going to be doing, as you can clearly tell, is we're going to be reacting to everybody's transfer window. How good has everybody's signings been already? Yes, they might make a few more, and when this video goes out, some more might get confirmed, but we're going to have a look. So Love Rugby League have already compiled a list of everybody from 14 to number 1 in terms of who they think has signed the best players or had the best, most successful transfer window. So we'll dive straight into it. So at 14th, they've put Wigan Warriors, which they've even noted that the fact they think, a few people might think this is controversial, but to be honest, we're talking about transfers, not form, or, how good they are, which kind of makes sense because realistically, they've not actually done a great deal of recruitment. So deals done, Dayan Sambu, St Helens, Johnny Vaughan, St Helens, Oliver Wilson from Huddersfield. So they've still, maybe they've still got a bit of recruitment to go, but as it stands, they've really not done a great deal, so they must be pretty confident that with the team they've got, they can still go well. But I mean, listen, they've got to, a grand final. They've consistently performed over the last few years, so you can't really blame them or knock them for not doing too much. If it isn't broken, don't fix it, but we'll see if that comes back to bite them. Huddersfield Giants at 13th, because this one, I was going to say it's a bit harsh, but the reality is that Huddersfield, from where they were last season, they kind of needed to do what Cass have done. I think they needed a total overhaul, if I'm honest. I've seen a post lately saying that they have grand final ambitions in the future, but I think in order for that to happen, drastic changes needed to be made, because I think they were on par with Castleford, or Castleford was slightly better last season, and Cass have totally transformed everything, which we'll see a bit later. But I think Nyleveld, he was a good pickup. Matthew Koza, Chris Patolo from Manly, Asher O'Donnell, Brisbane Tigers, and Ollie Russell. I just don't think it's enough for them to progress, and I think they will struggle again this season if they don't make some serious changes, because I don't actually think it was a case of gelling. I just don't think the side is up to Super League standard. But who knows? You never know. Like, honestly, you can have the same team, and with, if they click, they click. So maybe they can perform a bit better. Looking at Toulouse, another team that's kind of just doing okay realistically. AJ Wallace, Brendan Hans from Para, Luke Polselli from the Broncos, Matthew Pons from Oldham, and Tyler Dupree. If anything, the season on loan for with Tyler Dupree is probably one of the major ones here, and a lot of Wigan fans weren't even that annoyed at this just because of the fact that he's not actually been playing his best rugby per se. So I think Toulouse are another one that are probably going to struggle realistically. Bradford Bulls, so another team that's coming up in the Super League for the first year in Super League in God knows how many years, and I think the reality is that it's going to be tough for any of these new clubs that are coming into Super League. It's such a step up. The jump from Championship to Super League, I've been told, is absolutely crazy. They obviously got Andy Ackers, but let's be honest, he was probably at the back end of his career, is at the back end of his career, and I don't really know how much. He'll bring a lot, don't get me wrong, he'll bring a lot, but it's about that X factor. What I mean? Are these players that are gonna just about survive in Super League, or are they they're not really gonna rock the boat? I think they'll just do okay. They've signed a lot of players though, I'll give them that. They have made a lot of signings, granted not like many like super crazy ones, but I think the beauty is with a bit of depth is the fact that they can just play players who are in form, and the fact that the competition for places does create a competitive environment. So Rowan Milnes, obviously ex Castleford Tigers, I think he's all right. What I mean? He's not gonna break the line and win you a game from your own 40 or come out with something mental, but he has his moments, and I think if he can get a bit more consistency, I think he'll do well. Ethan Ryan from Oldham, pretty good player. He'll have a bit of pace. Jaden Nikarima, I think Nikarima is one of these players that still hasn't yet lived up to his potential. I mean, he comes from such good stock realistically. I think if he can really knuckle down, will do a good job. I think Doro was the one that I was most excited about, absolute mental carrier, particularly off the back line, solid forward. I think KR fans were sad to see him go, but he's a bit one-dimensional, but listen, if he does the job, he does the job. And then absolutely quite a few more Salford players. So Logan Lewis from Salford, who actually was like a Salford fan favourite, loose forward, solid player. I think he'll do a decent job. Will Gardner, I don't actually know much about, but I know people have said that this is a good pickup. Again, Brandon Douglas, Connor Wynne, Caleb Akins, Ed Chamberlain, Dan Russell, Ryan Sutton, Joe Mellor, absolutely tons of pickups here. So it's just about whether these guys can perform at that level is a big jump. I know Ryan Sutton was one that they were very excited about, but he spent quite a lot of time injured, so I think if he can stay fit, they'll do well. On to York. York Knights in 10th. Again, I think these clubs, I think maybe people are, not thinking that they're going to do so well, and I think they might shock a few people, but I don't know how big the signings are. Paul Vaughan, probably the biggest one for them, massive. Josh Griffin, another good one. Jordan Lipp from the North Devils, you never know what you're going to get. Sam Wood from Castleford, think he's a great pickup, to be honest. I'm not actually quite sure why Cass let him go. I mean, he was an England international 2 seasons ago. So I think York have done a better job than Bradford overall. Justin Sangare, probably one of Salford's standout players. John Bennison, I think another great pickup. Jack Smith, Danny Rich, Matty Foster, Ryan Jackson. These are all good players that I just don't think have had enough time to play consistent rugby, so hopefully they get to do that at York Knights. I mean, I've trained at York Knights and played on their facilities and stuff like that, and it is really good. So I think if they can get their professional setup alongside with some good talent, I think they'll do really well. Hull KR in at 9th because, again, they don't score massive just because they don't need to. Realistically, they've smashed it. They've done everything they needed to do. Juma Sambu from Oldhu, Tom Amon. Obviously, he went from Cass. He's just so reliable. Tom Amon, he just gives everything, so he'll be a really good pickup for him. Jack Charles, Jordan Desiree, that's probably a big one. It seems to be that props are just in high demand at the minute. There just doesn't seem to be that many forwards kicking about, so... But again, KR have been so good, they don't need to change too much. I think they'd be silly to. I think they don't really need to change too much. Leeds, 8th. I don't know. A tough one this because I think Leeds again they were really good, but they just needed a couple of things. Jeremiah Matautier from Cowboys, Ethan O'Neill, really good pickup that. Chris Hankinson and Danny Levi. I think Danny Levi was the one everybody was gassed about, the fact NRL level, hooker, great player. I think he will do really well, and it potentially could be exactly what Leeds need to push them from that playoff spot to right all the way to a grand final. Lee Leopards, not that much business done, little bit. Jack Alec, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Oliver Pollack from St Helens, Innis Senior, and Liam Horn. So they took 2 of the Cass boys. So obviously Cass doing a massive overhaul of the squad. They've just took up Innis Senior, who, let's be honest, 3 seasons ago, he was nearly one of the top try scorers in the league, and definitely Cass's top try scorer. He really can find the line. He's super athletic. He struggles in the air a little bit under the high ball and has struggled defensively sometimes in the past, but I think either way, good pickup. Liam Horn was the one I was most devastated about, but I just think for Cass, after last season, he had the best season at Cass. I think he won all the awards, and then he just came back and he wasn't quite fit. I think he probably just didn't have a good off-season into pre-season and then struggled to find his form again. And I think that's why Cass have let him go. And I think if he stays fit, he'll do a good job, particularly with the PNG links already at Lee. Looking at Warrington Wolves, I think the kind of... There's been joke of obviously it's always Warrington's year, and I just think it's getting to the point where they really want to hit that level of success. So I think every year they have a big push in terms of recruitment. So James Bentley, not sure what happened there, but Leeds let him go despite having years on his contract, but he's a good enough player that Wire have picked him straight up. I think he'll do a good job. Nothing too crazy though. Tofoa Sipley, I don't know much about. Liam Bryn from Wigan, he will be class. Albert Hopawate from Raiders, I think he will be really good. Josh Smith from Brisbane Tigers, Sam Stone, and Kalepi Tanganoa. That was the most recent one that got announced. Realistically, 6, this is harsh, you could argue, because honestly, there's some fucking good players in this list. And Warrington don't have a bad side anyway. There just seems to be an issue, whether it's discipline, whether it's Burgess in the coaching, who knows, just whatever it seems to be, that the team seems cursed, that they just can't gel no matter what the squad looks like. But listen, maybe this is their year after all. So Paul Rowley at Saints. I think Saints demand like quality, and I just think it's one of them where another team where they really, really want to get back to their winning ways. Shane Wright from Salford, Jacob Horse, South Sydney Rabbitohs, David Clemmer, that was the big one. Jacob Douglas, Joe Shorrocks, Jackson Hastings from Newcastle Knights, the one that's been absolute shocker that kind of came out of nowhere really. I think Saints' biggest issue, well, we know it was obviously a bit of their kicking game and kind of just their halfback pairings. They just struggled with their spine. Obviously, young Whitby, just kind of in and out of the squad, and Lomax, and they didn't really know what they were doing. But I think Lomax will pair up with Hastings, ready for Whitby to join, maybe a couple of games this season, or next season when Lomax moves on or Hastings moves on. But it's a very experienced halfback partnership, so in theory they should do really, really well. Hull FC have done absolutely tons of signings. I didn't know whether I'd put them over Catalan personally. Sam Lasone, I mean, I've always rated Sam Lasone. I think he goes underappreciated because he's not your typical hard-working prop in terms of he'll play 80 minutes, but those 20-30 minutes that he comes on in stints, mate, he changes the game. Like, he'll absolutely skittle the first person he runs into, and it just gets teams straight on the front foot. So him and Herman Esse and Asiata, that is a terrifying forward pack. Jake Arthur from Newcastle Knights, Connor Bailey, Joe Batchelor, James Bell, Harvey Hill, Arthur Romano, Joe Phillips. I think Hull FC are looking pretty damn good. I think the Hull FC Hull KR derby this year is going to be very exciting to watch because I think FC are not messing about. Catalan Dragons, again, lots of signings. Toby Sexton, Solomon Fatape, Harvey Wilson, Josh Allen, Zach Lipowicz. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one. Fasu Amale. Charlie Staines, who was supposed to be a baller. Josh Sim, who was probably one of the good players for Castleford Tigers, realistically. Lewis Dodd, I think this one's massive because realistically, Lewis Dodd is a great player. He obviously didn't get the chance at South Sydney Rabbitohs, but I think that's discredited him a little bit, and I think he'll really want to prove a point. So I think he'll come to Catalan like a house on fire. Wakefield Trinity, and you know what, reading this it kind of shocked me at first, but when you actually have a look at Wakefield Trinity's signings, it is crazy realistically. Neil Tachambe, Tyson Smoothie, Jas Tivaga, Trey Lalicio, Jordan Williams, Kian McGann, Will Tate, Jack Sinfield. I mean, you could swap them, with some of the teams before. There's maybe some more marquee, but it's just the ones that stand out. Tivaga's just absolutely bossed it in the Pacific Champs. Tyson Smoothie has just been in a grand final. Like, Wake here already been on really good form, coming up from the Championship, and then everything that they've done last season. And then if they then go on this season, it'll be very, very impressive if they can, jump off the back of those things and perform again. I think Wakey are going to be really, really good. I think everybody's stepping the game up. I think this is probably the biggest step up I think we'll see in Super League with the introduction of 2 more teams. I think it's going to be the most competitive it's ever been. Castleford Tigers at number 1. I mean, I can't say I was shocked when I've seen this because I'm a Castleford Tigers fan, so I'm a little bit biased. But the reality is that they really have got rid of the entire team. It's crazy. So Brock Grayson from the Newcastle Knights, kind of a young up and coming player, like very well high regarded. Blake Taft, probably one of the bigger signings that's going to slot in at fullback, it looks like. Michaela Riverwalla, absolutely solid edge player, same with Semi Valamere. Those guys are going to get Cass out of trouble. Cass struggle getting out their own half and that strike threat, and I think they'll have both that covered. Jordan Lane was really good, same with Jack Ashworth once he gets back of his ban. Renner Fatoni is the only one that I'm not convinced by on this list in terms of signings. I know Wakey have said that he can be a bit inconsistent, and I'm not fully convinced. I still think Cass will need another big forward. Liam Hood, if he can stay fit, I think he'll be really, really good. He's not the youngest of players, but he was good for Wakefield last season, so he should do a job. Darnell McIntosh, I've heard like literally opposite things. I've heard people saying he's really, really good, great pickup because he swapped it in his senior, and I've heard people saying absolute shocking, so I guess we'll wait and see. That one's an unknown. And then Tom Weaver, which will be Dejan Assey's halfback partner. So I think just those signings alone of Blake Taft, Brock Grayson, Tom Weaver, and then lots of NRL talent in that just can't be understated. And I think if they can just bring that kind of like NRL mentality, they can do well. And the most recent, obviously, Aidan Doolan from Barrow Raiders, who was in some kind of like South Sydney development team. So I think that's why Cass end up number one on this list, simply just because they genuinely have overhauled their new team, which will either work one way or completely other. They'll either absolutely storm it and, maybe looking at a mid-table finish. That's the absolute dream scenario for them, I think. Or they just won't gel because it's such a new squad. I think it really depends on whether Ryan Carr can get them to have a good pre-season, so I guess we will see. But anyway, that is the full list. Let me know what you would change, what you don't agree with. Has anyone been harshly done by? Again, this list was not mine, it was Love Rugby League, so I've just reacted to it. But anyway, if you still made it this far to the video, please drop a subscribe, that really helps me out. Also a like and comment, that pushes this video out to more people. And I just thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you